move on?
I can say that, I think the question is, how about data from the state prisons?
Yes.
There are obviously some case reports of increasing number of infections in prisons and jails, but I don't have any particular set of data that's focused on the rates in prisons.
I can share that in California, on the federal prisons, the facility in Lompoc has the highest number of positives for both inmates and staff, at 69 positives for those detained and 22 staff. And then there are only 2 other federal prisons in California that are reporting positives, and they're reporting less than 10.
Thanks, Anita. Dr. Nguyen, we've heard conflicting information as to the origins of the virus. It was originally said it was from a wet market in China, and the latest we're hearing is that it was an experiment from the Wuhan clinic, a laboratory. So I'm wondering, what's the latest verified information as to the origins of the virus? And what can we do to prevent something like this from developing again?
Yeah, so I want to be very cautious about answering this question. I don't think we know for sure exactly when that first, animal to human transmission occur. I think the general accepted idea is that it came from the wet markets. The idea that it came out of labs, I think most of us do not believe in that. And I would really encourage people not to disseminate that information. It feeds into both conspiracy theories and also anti-Asian racism that's been really problematic for our communities. So I think the truth of the matter is, I think we need to wait more before we say anything, but it is clear that the spread of the infection started in China. There's no question in terms of the genetic information. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
What can we do to prevent something like this from
becoming
a pandemic again?
Yeah, I do think that it's pretty well accepted that the WHO and even the Chinese government have really strongly recommended that we stop having wet markets where people can buy live wild animals. So I think that's certainly one way to stop that. Of course, we don't know where the next pandemic's coming from, whether or not it's going to be animal to human transmission or something else. But that clearly is a risk factor. So,
thank you.
The next question comes from Eleni Balakrishnan for Genoveva.
Hi. Yeah, so I was asking about the farm workers in the Central Valley. Is there a community with a history of exploitation? What's being done to protect them, whether it's physically, financially, or health-wise? I know earlier we were talking about getting information out in different native languages. I know a lot of people there may speak languages other than Spanish, as well as the Trump administration's efforts to cut foreign farm worker wages to help out the farming industry, which is struggling right now.
And my quick answer would be that not enough. I'm really upset that immigrant communities were left out of the CARES Act funding. It is horrendous to think that in a time of so much need, we would want to decrease anybody's wages. There needs to be definitely a lot more protections. What is happening right now in the San Joaquin Valley is a lot of advocacy around anti-evictions, because if we want people to shelter in place, we need to allow them to have a shelter. There is a lot of advocacy right now about preventing water cutoffs, because if we want people to wash their hands, they need to have access to water. So that advocacy and the work to raise awareness around those needs isn't coming from leadership. It's coming from the advocates who have long time been fighting for and defending the rights of farm working communities here in the San Joaquin Valley. Again, they were experiencing a tremendous amount of inequity prior, and this is only exacerbating the situation that they're in. Our food banks are taxed to the max. We are delighted to hear about the resources that Governor Newsom announced specifically for undocumented individuals. I do think it'll be help, it certainly won't be enough. We are in this for a long haul, and we need to think about policies and resources that are really going to be benefiting people for quite some time. I just want to say that for me, I'm reminded about the importance of things like having a just and fair immigration system. So now is the time where we need to see leadership from our Congress and federal officials to advance that. If we want more guest workers, we're going to have to, at some point, bring in more farm workers if we are not protecting the farm workers that we have now. And by protecting them, I'm speaking about personal protective equipment that should be furnished to them. I'm talking about helping to support their food security. They are some of the population with the highest levels of food insecurity. We need to talk about housing security for them. All of these issues, as well as issues around environmental justice. Farm working communities have some of the most disproportionate water pollution contamination in the San Joaquin Valley. Right now, water is being delivered to many of those communities. So issues like that are of important magnitude, and we need better long-term solutions to address and ameliorate.
Thank you very much.
So I just wanted to ask, following on Pilar Marrero's question on regulations, because I read OSHA is just is rolling back on regulations on safety protections for employees, and they're leaving it to discretion of employers to provide PPTs, PPEs, the personal protection equipment for employees that are in different sectors, not only health, but retail and others.
Who's your question for, Michelle?
Oh, anyone that wants to jump in, maybe Genoveva or anyone that would like to jump in, because it's very concerning that they're rolling back regulations, especially at this time.
Well, I'll just say to the earlier question that there is not enough information getting to non-English speaking communities, and certainly in particular about how they would avail themselves to resources like masks. I know within the Latino community, there are a lot of women who are currently making masks, giving them to their neighbors, to their friends, but it is not enough. We do need to have an organized manner in which we are providing for workers and anybody that is essential, whether it's grocery store workers as well, the equipment that they need so that we can prevent infections moving forward.
So my question is for Genoveva, and it has to do with this announcement by the Department of Homeland Security that they came out with these new regulations to ease some of the requirements for hiring and employing agricultural workers under the H-2A visa. What do you think about that? And and also I'm hearing from people in the area that there's really no shortage of farm workers, because a lot of people that have been let go of other businesses like construction are going back to the field because this is something that they used to do. So do we have a need for more of these H-2A workers, and are these regulations going to hurt more than they're going to help, or are they helpful?
I do think that it is taking advantage of people during, a very challenging time. So what is happening is that, yes, there are people working in the fields. There are people who have lost jobs that potentially could go work in the fields. But what is also simultaneously happening is that many of the growers have lost markets because the retail chain is collapsing. So in the San Joaquin Valley, we have farmers who are plowing under lettuce. We have dairies that are also disposing of raw milk because the demand is decreasing. So we do need to think of a way to resolve it. I don't think it means reopening our economy, but it does mean reinforcing those businesses that are providing essential services like foods. I also want to say that one area of need is within our food banks. Many of the employees within food banks had tended to be elderly individuals, and so we need more strong, able-bodied people, because what is happening right now that we're seeing a shift is that our farmers are no longer going to their traditional markets. They do have more foods that could be acquired and delivered through food banks. But food banks also have limited storage and labor. So there is a definite realignment that is happening within our food systems. It is not all equitable. It is not all going to continue to support gainful employment. So while I am glad that some ease in being able to come and work here is there, I want to make sure that what is happening is not an exploitation that we have seen for quite some time already. What we need, again, just and fair immigration system, and we need to make sure that we are honoring and recognizing the labor of.
Hi, Doctor. I have a question about our life after the shelter-in-place lifted. So are we expecting a new normal? Are we going to wear masks and keep social distancing until the vaccine invented? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that we will have a new normal until there is an effective vaccine. Now, we may have fluctuation in what that new normal is depending on the level of infection. You know, I saw your question on the chat, and I think there may be some element of mask wearing more regularly, assuming that we have enough supply of masks to make sure that our high-risk healthcare workers have access to. For us, the mask question has always been really the balance between what low-risk people, which is what people in the community at large, versus what high-risk people need. So as long as I have enough supply, one of the big issue here is that this time that's quote unquote a downtime for us, we should be revving up our production of everything that we're going to need so that we can go back to normal and not be scrambling. So whether it's masks or personal protective equipments or ventilators or hospital beds, we should be building up. We should not just be doing nothing.